just getting started. This is South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Welcome.
Hey, man. What's going on?
Hi, Chris.
We're having a very interesting show tonight, as always.
I think we have an interesting show every night.
Always, Marcus, always. We've got, in the first hour, we've got State Representative Chris Hendricks, who's calling us from Washington, D.C. Yeah. He got invited down to the White House. That's a pretty big deal. But in the second hour, we'll have Evan Genro, who's Republican candidate for the House of Representatives. Now, that's a big district, right, Marcus? He's got New Bedford, Fall River, Westport, Freetown.
It's a stupidly drawn district.
It's a crazy district.
Yeah.
Schmidt is the current state representative, the Democrat.
He's the current representative, has been since 2011. I believe it was Mike Roderick's old seat, and then when Mike Roderick's was elevated to the Senate, Paul Schmidt took over in 2011.
And then they redistricted it last time around.
Yeah, so now it includes Acushnet where it previously didn't. But we're actually joined by State Rep Hendricks live from D.C.
Hello.
Hey, Chris. How are you?
Hello, Chris. Marcus, how are you?
Doing great. How are you? How are you today, Representative?
I'm excellent. Just enjoying D.C. for a few days while, as you mentioned, being invited here by the White House to celebrate the Inflation Reduction Act.
So tell us a little bit about that, Chris. You were actually invited down by the Biden White House.
Correct. So the invite came out several weeks ago, I'd say, and so we were there yesterday. Yesterday afternoon, there was quite a bit of people there. It was, I think it was an event where, all his statewide supporters and statewide partners were invited, just to hear the president and others speak on the ins and outs of the actual bill, which I think will certainly be transformative once it's put into place. So it was a good day. Certainly it was my first trip to the White House, and, it was obviously very cool to be there and interesting, being a history person and someone who values, the government and history. It was certainly an experience to remember for sure.
So, Chris, regardless of whether, obviously you were invited there because you are a supporter of the president, but regardless of that, it is an amazing thing to go to the White House. I've been there under a different administration. I went there for Clinton, I believe. But it was amazing. Share a little bit about that. Yeah,
it's as I said, it was my first time. We didn't get a chance to go into the White House. As I said, there was there were thousands of people there.
Right.
It had that concert type vibe where, you had seats up front and then standing room only on the lawn in the back. And so it was, it would have been nice to get in the building, but being on the grounds was certainly very cool. Something I'll always remember, as you said. And I get the impression that from people I was talking to that other presidents were, had a lot more, events, and things like that for, supporters and partners and the like. But I think, with COVID and the pandemic, certainly doing things like that was, had to get a late start. So I'm certainly glad I was able to get the invite and go and support the president in this bill.
We're speaking with Representative Chris Hendricks, who's in D.C. after celebrating the signing of the Inflation Reduction Act with President Joe Biden yesterday. So what do you think? That this is a comprehensive bill. It almost, it was one that had been talked about a lot, but no one thought it was going to come into fruition until, Manchin and Sinema had agreed to get on board with it. What do you think it's going to do for us here in the South Coast, in your district, and in the Commonwealth in general?
Well, first, I think it's, before we get even the merits of the bill, it's certainly an example of, working with the president working with people who he, doesn't agree with completely and getting some sort of compromise legislation. So I think just that alone is really cool on how it was, how it was worked through pretty substantially. But I think it's going to have huge effects Basically, this bill was put into place because, high inflation, trying to lower costs, whether it be healthcare, prescription drugs, energy costs. So I see this bill as a two-faceted bill, mostly with healthcare and taxes. The most pertinent part of this bill, in my opinion, and I'll relate it to my work, my professional work as a lawyer, is that
you're a lawyer. Oh my God, you're a lawyer?
Don't tell too many people. So there's a $2,000 annual cap on prescription drugs for seniors, and I think that is unbelievable. Every single, senior I've talked to in the district in Massachusetts, across the state or otherwise, is that, the out-of-pocket expenses relative to prescriptions is just burdensome. And a lot of folks have to get, supplemental health insurance to cover just that cost alone.
Right.
So the cap at $2,000 for folks on Medicare is going to be is going to have a huge impact, I think, for the better for older folks across the state. And it's also in the fact that Medicare can now negotiate prescription drug prices. And that's kind of, for a layman hearing that, it's kind of, okay, what does that really mean? And as I said, I'll relate it to my work as an attorney. So with workers' comp in Massachusetts, insurance companies have to pay something, health benefits that's work related. Okay. So, but that doesn't mean that they have to pay, for a prescription that costs $1 million. There's regulations that are put in place that allow, in Massachusetts, that allow the insurance companies to negotiate prices with the health providers. So if someone injures their back at work and they need surgery and the doctor's asking, $20,000, but according to the regulations, the insurance companies only have to pay, $12,000. That normally in a normal world relative to Medicare on the federal level, then the customer would be out of luck, or the patient would be out of luck. But in Massachusetts, relative to workers' comp, the insurance company can negotiate a price instead of $12,000, or $20,000. Say, okay, we'll do it for $17,500, and so that gets that person that certain surgery. So that's how that works in Massachusetts. Now Medicare is going to be able to do that across the country relative to prescription drugs. Whereas, if the price was too high for the consumer, they would have to be responsible for getting their own supplemental health insurance or getting the money to pay for that. So now that won't be the case. So I think that's going to have huge impacts, not only in Massachusetts, but across the country, as far as alleviating that pressure for seniors. That's all you hear with seniors. And I do a lot of work with Social Security. I do a lot of work with seniors. And so I'm certainly aware of the pressure that's put on those folks, with health insurance after they retire and stop, earning wages.
Speaking with State Representative Chris Hendricks, who's in Washington after celebrating the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act with President Joe Biden. So, how did you get the invite? Why did you get the invite, Chris?
Well, as you know, Marcus, I endorsed the president as early as October 2019.
Oh, I know. You think I forgot? I'll never forget that.
Remember, he's a Bernie guy, folks. He's a Bernie guy.
I'll never forget that. No, I know.
So, I think ultimately it's just to get energy and attention on the things that he's doing for, to get his message out. And I think ultimately that's why, I was invited. And so there was a small delegation from Mass. It was me, Mike Day, who was the chair on the House side of the Judiciary Committee. He was in attendance. Josh Cutler, Tom Stanley, Jeff Roy, as you know, who is
energy chair, right?
Yes, and so he's been involved with a lot of goings on down in New Bedford recently. So it was cool that he was able to make it. I think Patrick Kieran, Representative Kearney, was there as well. So it was just a cool, it was just a small.
And Mayor Mitchell was
delegation. There. What's that?
Mayor Mitchell was there as well.
Oh, was that right?
Yeah.
You didn't even know? That's
no,
funny.
I didn't.
You guys don't text?
No, I didn't. I wasn't aware. And it's funny because the people who were there, no one really knew who was invited. So the only person I knew was going was Chairman Day. And so, it was interesting that, others were invited. It was kind of hard. I figured that, the White House has a rolling list of, of people they need to invite. So I would imagine those from Massachusetts who didn't get invited will be getting invited for future events.
Well, unless they supported Bernie. Marcus.
Yeah.
Or exactly.
Marcus will not be being invited.
I don't think you'll see Marcus at the White House in the Rose Garden anytime soon.
But how is James Taylor? Did you get a chance to hear him?
Yeah, James Taylor was very, very cool. And so, people who know me know that I love folk music. I love, especially music from the 60s and all that. So it was awesome because no one knew that he was going to be there. And so they say, the performance is going to start in 5 to 10 minutes. And then James Taylor jumps on stage. So that was very cool. He played 3 songs. Forgot one song, which I forget the name of. And then I think like My Country 'Tis of Thee, a variation of that tune.
He played Fire and Rain too, right?
That's it. He started up with Fire and Rain,
which is about being in an insane asylum watching a plane crash. So,
yeah,
yes, that's what it's about.
Yeah, no, he had a big history with mental health issues in the past. But it was very cool. It was hot. I got burnt, and I wish I brought me and Jeff Roy were talking about how we left our sunblock on the counter at our hotels. So,
but it was. Look, I think it's very good for the region to have a representative down there at Washington being invited by the White House. Again, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you have to appreciate that. Proximity to power is power. And I do appreciate it that you were able to do that, Chris, in just your very first full term or second term in office.
Right. Yeah. And when I endorsed Joe Biden, like I said, in October of 19, he was 6, 7, 8 on the list as far as polling. So, I was glad I made the right decision ultimately, and certainly glad I was able to celebrate with him yesterday.
That's excellent, Chris. Really appreciate it. By the way, so congratulations on getting reelected. You don't have a Republican opponent or an independent, no one running against you. So you'll be reelected. Anything you're looking forward for the next session, Chris?
In your brand new district.
Right, brand new district.
Yeah,
New Bedford district.
Up until November, I'll still be focused on knocking on doors and getting my message out. As I have been, I've been going door to door since the new district lines have been delineated. So that's been good. So I'll just continue to focus on that. My work in the Judiciary Committee will always keep me busy. I would imagine come the new session. In the economic, there was news today that I saw that the Baker administration is still trying to figure out an estimate. The Suzanne Bump has a September 20th deadline to certify Baker's estimate for that $2.94 billion tax excess revenue situation with Chapter 62F. So hopefully sometime soon we'll get a clearer indication of what that's going to look like, whether it be credits, rebates, checks, etc. There's a lot of money to be considered.
I think you answered this. I think you answered this last time you were on. But are you in support of that $2.9 billion being refunded?
I'm in support of the taxpayers in Massachusetts getting a break. Whether it be credits, rebates, or checks. If it turns out that the legislature, with Baker's plan to do something through Chapter 62F, that's the way to go, then certainly. I would like to see the economic development bill the way we did it in the legislature before the session ended. I would like to see something more along the lines of that, where we give rebates or credits based on income. So certainly the administration in the House and Senate have different ways of getting money into the pockets of the taxpayers, but hopefully we'll get something, a compromise process soon.
Hey, Chris, we got a call on the line. Someone wants to talk to you. 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program. Oh,
we might hang up on you.
I accidentally hung up on Chris, but he'll call back.
Or just put the call through. I'll act like him.
Hello.
I'm just calling to say I'm glad they get to celebrate with all the beautiful people listening to James Taylor while the rest of us are suffering.
Thank you. Thanks for the call, my friend. Yeah, I did. I will say that I did think it was a little odd And I know that line has been brought up.
It's a celebration to end the suffering.
Yeah. Usually you celebrate after the suffering's over.
I got you locked in now. You're locked in on the phone, so I can't drop you if I tried. So
that was your fault. Just to be clear.
It was entirely my fault. Yes, it was all of my fault.
If you want to hear the call, listen to the podcast.
Cleared that up. Not surprised, but I'm glad you cleared it up.
Okay, so we've got another call coming through, so we're going to take it. Good evening. You're live.
Good evening, fellas. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Chris.
Yes.
This is the tough question. What part of lowers inflation?
What?
What part of the bill that they went down to Washington to celebrate lowers inflation?
Rep Hendricks?
Well, it's inflation reduction in the sense that it puts money and lowers costs in relation to inflation relative to healthcare and in energy. And basically how they're going to pay for it, according to Congress, is that, they're going to, there's a 15% minimum tax on billion-dollar corporations. The idea is to use that money and also another 1% surcharge on stock buybacks, which I think is huge, because that's going to create a lot of revenue.
Who's going to pay that,
the idea is
though?
to use that revenue to lower prescription drug costs, to lower, another thing that I didn't mention was insulin is going to be capped at $35 a month. So we'll see. I mean, I think this is a very multifaceted bill.
It's worth mentioning that Representative Hendricks is in the State House. He didn't write this bill or vote for it.
And also, he's on the phone, so there's a little bit of a disconnect. Caller, I'm not sure if he can hear you clearly. Ask your question again.
I think he went down to celebrate it, so he should be able to answer. For instance, when is this kicking in? Because it's not going to do anything for inflation. Years, is it?
Well, this is more of a long-term strategy to address, from what I gather, a long-term strategy for inflation. Gas prices and other prices are already, especially gas prices, are already going down. But prices for food and healthcare remain high. So this is designed to have a long-term strategy. It's not going to happen overnight, for sure. But certainly this is designed to have a long-term.
Were you hanging out with Camilla? Because that's word salad. There's nothing in there to lower food prices.
Yeah, but I don't know what to tell you. But the 2,000 annual cap on prescription drugs, that is in fact a lower of price. Right now there is no cap, so people are paying $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for prescription drugs. Once this bill is put into place, which has already been signed, there will be a cap. So if someone's on Medicare, they will never pay more than $2,000 for prescription drugs. That is a tangible effect of this bill. That's going to have, it's going to help thousands of people, not only in my district alone.
Well, when will that happen?
And I meet with senior folks and the elderly quite a bit, and I understand that's going to be a huge benefit as it relates to price and cost.
I'm glad you had a nice time. Have a good day, sir.
Hey, Chris, the caller wanted to ask you, and again, I know there's a disconnect here, but when do you think this is all going to take, when does this take effect, this bill, the Medicare, the prescription drug piece especially?
I don't know when the effective date is.
Oh, okay.
But I would imagine it would be sometime within the next.
With these comprehensive laws, usually some things are immediate, some things are in, whatever at this time, and there's a lot in this bill. So we're trying to get a member of Congress on. We will to talk more comprehensively about that. But Chris, we appreciate you coming on. We appreciate you talking to our callers. Is there anything else you want to leave the audience with before we let you go?
No, I just want to say stay involved. We still the primary season is over, but there's certainly a lot to look for. With general races. And certainly I'll be still going around the district. So I look forward to seeing everybody who I haven't seen yet. And just stay tuned and stay listening and stay attentive to the politics.
Thanks, Chris. And you're always a good sport.
Appreciate it, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. See you later, Chris.
All right, we got to take this break. We'll be right back.
We should have had my Elvis set up.
South Coast tonight. So, the Inflation Reduction Act, right?
Yes.
So it's called the Inflation Reduction Act because that they felt it was
because they wanted.
Yeah,
because they can name the bill anything they want.
So like that's the thing is that people are like they're like mad about it as if like branding isn't like a huge part of politics, right? Like just like when people were
you just feel like they're being lied to.
People were squabbling with me because I kept calling Florida that Ron DeSantis law where he makes gay teachers illegal, the don't say gay bill, and they're like,
right,
it's actually called the
do that. Actually.
It's actually called the yes, it does. It's actually called the Parents' Rights and Education bill. I'm like, yeah, but don't say gay is a catchier branding.
Here's one thing I've learned about talk radio is that my brand and reputation is more important to me than political people's.
Yeah, and
so I don't try to tell people things that aren't true just because I believe in them politically. I find that goes a lot further. So I don't buy into that stuff. Like I don't follow the company line, whether it's Republican, or Democrat or Trump or not Trump. I mean, I think you're better off, at least for me personally, calling the way you see it rather than repeating obvious fictitious stories that a politician's trying to sell.
Yeah.
Because I'm not in a particular camp, right? I have a particular opinion. Or a particular philosophical belief.
Sure.
But I wouldn't repeat a lie just because the Democrats or the Republicans wanted me to.
No, it's just better. I think it's, again, I thought it was better branding, and I think it was an effective
but I think
explanation of the law.
I think that when Chris gets on there and tries to sell that brand, you saw how bad it went. I mean, Chris is a good guy, but he couldn't, and he's a very smart guy. He couldn't come up with an answer because there is no answer. It's like, it's not, it should have been, he pivoted. He said the energy, the prescription drug, that type of thing. That's what they should have sold it as. That's the reality. It lowers cost of prescription drugs direct to the consumer. It's got a piece on renewable energy in there. It doesn't do anything for inflation. In fact, it may even make it worse because it's just dumping more government cash into the system.
Right.
So if you're an honest person, which Chris is, you really couldn't even make a full-throated defense of it because.
Well, I think he was making a defense of the legislation because I think he believes, and I believe it too.
But he couldn't make a defense of the name.
Of the name,
right?
Yes, the name, right? Yeah.
And so, it's why I dumped Trump a long time ago. I'm not going along with what Trump says, even if I agree with his policies.
Yeah.
Because what he's saying is not accurate.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, do I think that what happened in the election was wrong? Yes, but they didn't steal the election.
Right.
When they didn't produce the information about the laptop, or they got a bunch of CIA agents to lie about the laptop of Hunter Biden's, yes, that obviously had an impact on the election. But that's not the same as stealing the election.
508-996-0500. Good evening.
Fellas, I called and spoke to Chris. Can I speak to you guys now? Do you mind?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure, that's fine.
All right. I appreciate what you just said, and I got to say I appreciate the fact that he came on the radio and he was willing to take calls, but a lot of guys won't do that.
Oh, yeah.
But he gave a big word salad answer that made him look worse than if he had just said, it does nothing for inflation, but it does help you with pills. It'll help you with pills in 5 years.
That's
he didn't
my point.
do that. He did not do that. He tried to BS us, and we're smarter than that. And that's embarrassing for someone I want to vote for who's trying to think I'm stupid, and he can BS me with word salad. I mean, that's what it comes down to, and that's why I asked him several times, and he couldn't answer. It's just disgusting. It really is. I don't care what they call the plan, but don't pretend it is what it's not, and that's exactly what he was doing.
Well, because there's a lot of things in there that are worthwhile, and so they give it this grandiose title that then screws up the proponents of it.
Right, because you can't say, "Oh, I don't want to lower inflation." I can't vote for that because there's a lot of dumb people out there. But when you get smart constituents who call your politicians out, and the politicians still play along, that's the politician saying the constituents are stupid. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, it's very. I'd be embarrassed. And who paid for the trip too? I bet you we did.
No, he paid for it. I happen to have this conversation with him. He paid for it.
He paid for it?
Yeah, I know he did, only because he and I are good friends outside of this, and I actually happened to talk to him.
Good.
So no, that was on us, not on him.
Okay,
that was on him. No,
him.
that was on him, not on us. Let me rephrase.
Good. I commend him for doing that, and I commend him for at least coming on the radio to answer questions. But his Camilla Harris word salad was a little embarrassing.
Let's change his name to Camilla. I like that.
Yeah. All right, fellas. Good talk with a great show.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It's actually Kamala.
I thought it was Camel. Kamala.
It's Kamala.
Well,
Kamala.
As I always say,
Kamala.
Marcus, if I don't know, it's not my fault. It's yours. It's theirs.
That's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
No, but look, anytime you try to make a big, grandiose title, they do this with wars, Operation Freedom.
Yeah.
Operation.
Yeah.
Right. Operation Never Again.
Operation Iraqi Freedom.
There you go,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Because they want to cover up the reality of it, which is Operation someone's getting a bullet in their brain, right?
Yeah.
And I think they went too far on this because, look, inflation is a tricky, tricky monster. It's getting worse every day. And by the way, I do not completely blame the Biden administration. It goes back. I will tell you, for those nerds in the audience, I'm a school, the Austrian School of Economics. The Austrian school has been talking about inflation because the government spending has been going on for decades under Democrats and Republicans. And if you just print more money, eventually it's going to be competing for less goods. We just happen to come into it during Biden's administration.
Yeah, I mean, so I even saw one of my friends shared one time a graph of that the House GOP had shared, and it said of the inflation under Biden, and it shows, and it says this is where Biden took it over, and this is where he blames Russia, and this is where he blames this, and this is where he blames that, and I'm like, okay, but you can even see on their own graph that the line's ticking up while he's taking office, right? So
if you want,
economics are a bit more complicated than who's president on that day,
If you want to really get an honest opinion of inflation, I don't care if you agree with him on anything else, but Dr. Ron Paul, former congressman, really understands inflation, and he gives it to you honestly. You might not like his other policy positions, but on inflation, he's got it down, and he doesn't pull any punches. There are other people who get it. Larry Summers does a pretty good job as well, but Larry Summers is more a politician. Ron Paul is not in office anymore. He always was a district in Texas they agreed with him on everything. So you could say the truth, right? Much the way some of our Massachusetts Democrats who have districts that really agree with them could say what they really believe.
You know what Biden said, that Massachusetts has the best congressional delegation in the country, right? And that sounds like puffery, but really it's up there, right? In terms of like sheer, like, just hands-on power, right? I mean, California probably has a bit more power players with Pelosi and Schiff, but you look at Keating, what he's doing in foreign affairs. Richie Neal, chairman of Ways and Means, assistant speaker of the House, Catherine Clark.
So, Marcus, I will tell you this. Bill Keating explained it to me a long time ago, maybe on the air, maybe off the air. I don't think it's out of school for me to repeat it on the air. That basically the system that Massachusetts follows, the plan, was created by Tip O'Neill and Joe Moakley back when they first were in Congress. And when a new member of the delegation comes in, they make sure they get seated on the proper committee because of the fact that they know they're going to be there for a while and that seniority matters.
Yeah.
If Keating's on foreign affairs, but he's also on armed services.
Yeah.
Right? You look at the work that's been done. Our economy is very defense-oriented, whether you like it or not, it is. And we have Senator Warren, which I always criticize her on this because I don't think she does enough, but she's on armed services in the Senate,
she is,
right?
Yeah.
This is the economy that Ted Kennedy built in terms of defense spending. One of the very few things that the government really can do in terms of Keynesian promotion of economics in their district is defense spending.
Yeah.
Right? You look at this, what's going on in the Ukraine now, that's all Raytheon.
Right.
It's all Raytheon. We have a lot of people coming out of UMass Dartmouth who are going to work for major defense contractors, right? The blue economy is a lot of defense spending money.
It is,
right?
yeah.
So anyway, you're right about that, Marcus. The strategic plan of the Massachusetts delegation. Give you an example. Ayanna Pressley, who's part of the squad and a little bit out of the mainstream of the Democrat Party, maybe she is the mainstream now, I don't know. She's on financial services.
Yeah.
Right?
Jake Auchincloss is the vice chair of financial services.
Stephen Lynch, financial services. Right?
Yep.
Because what what Massachusetts is known for, financial services.
Yeah.
Which is a major financial services company in this state. It's why I would criticize, and I think Bonnie Frank did a good job. I didn't agree with a lot of issues. But one of the things I always wondered why he didn't do, which is to bring some of these major financial service call centers into the New Bedford Fall River area. Because they are entry-level jobs, and it could have been done. Maybe our delegation now can do it.
I think I'm just checking now. Never mind. I thought somebody else. I mean, Richard Neal is the chair of Ways and Means. I thought somebody else
rules.
McGovern's rules,
which means every bill's got to go through his committee. Before it hits the floor. When it hits the floor, it's sculpted through his rules committee. Extremely important. He comes from Moakley.
Yes.
Moakley was chairman of rules.
Right.
He's inherited rules, not after Moakley. He got there after Moakley. But
McGovern's Central Mass, for people who don't know.
And used to be Dartmouth all the way down to here.
That's why, that's why
he beat Blue.
That's why Clinton was campaigning for him in Fall River.
Yep, correct. He had Fall River and Dartmouth, and he had what they call the Ivy League district.
What a
Harvard, Princeton, and Dartmouth in it.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting how the district came down like that.
It's called gerrymandering.
Yes, I know. It is gerrymandering. Yeah.
So it's funny how it ended after they got rid of the Republican.
Mm-hmm.
So so you have on the North Shore, you have Moultrie. Molten, right? Molten metal, molten steel,
Moulton.
right?
He ran for president for a few days.
He was in the presidential race for a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Or maybe a cup of espresso. So you have, as I said, I like to point out Ayanna Pressley because, as much as I disagree with her on things, she was smart enough to get on to know that it's important to be on financial services.
Yeah.
And to hold that position for her district.
Yep.
As I said, the spending of money at armed services goes through Keating. Very important. But also, if you look at the foreign affairs issues, which is a lot about trade, okay?
Yeah.
And Massachusetts has enormous trade. We have big trade with Canada. We have big trade with Europe. We did have a lot of trade with Russia, actually, in the energy field.
And Seth Moulton's on Armed Services, too, and he's on Committee of Transportation and Infrastructure, along with Auchincloss, who's on that committee as well. So
I should remember that because he's involved in the transportation debate right now about the takeover.
Yeah.
The potential takeover. Folks, there's a lot. So we do have, again, it would be nice if we could get a Republican, if they even ran a candidate, to get into the mix, because it's always better when you have a couple of Republicans. They had Silvio Conte for years from Western Mass.
Yeah.
They had Torkelson.
Right, it's better when they have those guys because it doesn't matter when your party changes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got the mix, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it would be particularly helpful, probably. But again, don't blame the Democrats that the Republicans don't even put candidates up. I mean, if you're going to give me a free run, I'm going to do it,
Yeah.
Or even if they put a candidate up that they don't even try. Again, I would just say this. Marcus, more than me, because he's got more ability right now, is out there trying to book guests.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus, they sometimes don't even return calls. Just explain it.
Well,
some of our Republicans don't even call us back.
Yeah, a few, including ones running for statewide office.
Right.
Including ones running for multiple statewide offices.
Right.
Because they don't know what they're doing. Or some request to be on specific shows.
Right.
And that's not how it works.
It's not how it works.
You got to come on a show that we want you to come on.
Right.
Or you can go do something that I can't say on the air.
Right.
So, hey, listen, we actually got to take this break. We'll be right back.
Remember, listen to us live.
Hey, so yeah, we were talking about Republicans that we are having on that
we're desperately trying to get on the radio.
Well, desperately is not the word I'd use.
Okay.
We're trying to get on the radio.
We're trying to give him a fair shake.
We're trying to give him a fair shake. I've the statewide candidates,
even if they have no money,
even if they have no shot at winning,
right?
Even if they're more of a joke than the candidate you think I'm thinking of, right? You think we're talking about.
They got the nomination of the party, even if I didn't vote for them.
Yeah.
The fact
but
that
they don't just respond. They just don't respond.
They don't respond. So I don't want you people out there to think somehow that we're keeping people off the air. We're not. We want everyone here. And by the way, we have a great candidate coming up next.
GOP state rep candidate Evan Gendro. So, hey, listen, we're going to take a break, actually, and we'll be right back.
180! What's up?
Republican candidate for state rep Evan Gendro. I believe he's outside now. He's going to be joining us in a few minutes.
Yeah, I think it'll be a nice interview. He's run before, and he's doing the right thing. He's coming back, even though he lost. Right? I mean, he's building on his name recognition. He's coming back. We're going to ask him about the issues, and if you want to ask him, you can as well. 508-996-0500. Again, I like when Republican candidates come into the studio and answer our questions.
Yeah. And, because we've had a few.
We've had a few.
But there's a few, we should have had more. We've had a lot more Democrats.
The thing is, Marcus, the reason I say it is, I just want people at home to know, we try our best. There's only so much we can do.
Yeah.
So
some Republicans are running
job.
serious campaigns. Right. Most of them, honestly, aren't right now around here. So we're doing what we can. But 508-996-0500 is if you want to get on the line with us and Evan Gendro. You can if you live in Acushnet, Westport, Freetown,
New Bedford,
the far north end of New Bedford. This person's running to be your rep.
Right,
against Paul Schmid. So
and Fall River too, and
parts of Fall River.
It's an amazing district.
Yeah, it is. It is really something.
And it'll be with us for 10 years.
Yes, it will be.
That's one thing. I mean, people don't realize
districts.
There's
a district I think it's in Pennsylvania. A lot of mappers talk about, and it's so gerrymandered. It's called Goofy Kicking Donald Duck. That's what, and it looks like that.
Well, I mean, for years we had Newton as part of New Bedford, the district for Barney Frank.
Well, now it's part of the Fall River district.
Yeah, it's crazy gerrymandering.
All right, so we'll be back with Evan Gendro at the 8 o'clock hour.